This story is titled, During Family Game Night, my brother said, let's play who regrets the most. Everyone laughed until my son said, I regret being related to all of you. They went silent. I tried to laugh it off. But the next morning, he was gone. What he did next? None of us were ready. So I guess the question is, ATA for hosting family game night and somehow blowing up my entire life? I'm not new to dysfunction. My family's always been the kind where fun comes with footnotes. We're like one of those off-brand board games you find in the clearance bin at Target. Looks harmless until you realize half the pieces are missing and someone's written "screw you" in Sharpie on the rulebook. I'm Mike, 44M, married to Jenna, 42F, father to Charlie, 17M. Jenna's older brother, Craig, 46M, is the kind of guy who drinks IPAs unironically and brags about being mentally tougher because he went to a 3-day silent retreat and didn't cheat once. Craig's wife, Dana, 44F, has that perma-smile energy that makes you want to apologize just for existing. We do these family game nights once a month because apparently group suffering is a tradition now. Anyway, this one was supposed to be fun. Jenna made tacos, Craig brought his artisanal hard seltzers, Dana wore one of those sweaters that says, why not, in glitter font, and Charlie, well, Charlie actually came downstairs, which already felt like a win. He's 17, brilliant, moody, and allergic to all forms of forced social interaction. Basically, if sarcasm was a blood type, he'd be O-negative. The night started off okay. We played some lame trivia game that Craig insisted on because it stimulates cognitive bonding. Charlie destroyed us all with a scary mix of obscure knowledge and passive-aggressive eye rolls. Then, right as we were packing up, Craig goes, let's play one more. How about who regrets the most? And he laughs like it's hilarious. Everyone chuckles. Jenna even nudges me like, he's just being Craig, which honestly explains nothing and excuses less. We go around sharing fake deep regrets. Dana says she regrets not learning Italian before their anniversary trip to Florence. Craig regrets selling Bitcoin in 2017, of course he does. Jenna says she regrets not having another kid. She looks at me when she says it. I pretend not to notice. I say I regret getting bangs in high school. Haha. Everyone laughs, tension diffused. Then Charlie, my sweet, sharp, socially radioactive son. Deadpan, he goes. I regret being related to all of you. I swear you could hear the soul get sucked out of the room. Nobody said a thing. Not even Dana, who once filled 5 minutes of silence by describing her favorite Trader Joe's hummus in excruciating detail. I let out this pathetic little laugh, like maybe we could write it off as dry humor. Teenagers, am I right? But no one bit. Jenna looked like someone slapped her with a salmon. Craig started fiddling with a seltzer can. Dana blinked like her face was buffering. Charlie just stood up, walked to his room, and slammed the door. I heard him lock it. That part hurt more than I'd expected. I cleaned up alone that night. Jenna said she had a headache. Craig and Dana had an early morning. Nobody said goodnight to Charlie. The next morning, his door was open. Closet half empty. Bed made. Phone gone. Laptop gone. So was he. There was a note. Not dramatic. Just 3 words, printed in all caps. I meant it. Now everyone's looking at me like I caused this. Like I should have known. Like I'm the bad dad who hosted the one game that pushed his kid to disappear. But here's the kicker. I think Charlie's been disappearing for months. We just didn't want to see it. So, Reddit. ATA for hosting family game night and maybe pushing my son over the edge. By the time Jenna found the note, I'd already checked the garage, the basement, under the deck, every closet in the house like he was a missing sock instead of a human being. I meant it. That was all it said. No apology, no explanation, not even the classic, don't come looking for me melodrama. Just 3 words that felt like a gut punch I paid for in advance. Jenna kept rereading the note like it would magically rearrange itself into something softer. Craig and Dana came back once they realized we weren't just being extra about a team tantrum. Craig started pacing like a bootleg FBI agent, muttering about burner phones and tracking software. Dana just kept whispering, oh my God, like she was praying to a Wi-Fi signal. Meanwhile, I called Charlie's friends. Or tried to. Turns out he doesn't really have friends anymore. Not real ones. Just online handles and usernames I've never heard him say out loud. I checked his room cleaner than it's ever been. Too clean. Like hotel room clean. Drawers half empty. Backpack missing. Switch gone. A few of his favorite books still there. Almost like he wanted me to notice the absence more than the mess. That's when the dread settled in. Not panic. Panic is fast and loud. This was slow, cold, creeping dread. The kind that seeps into your spine and starts whispering, you failed. You failed him. And now it's too late. Jenna asked me if I remembered any signs. I said no. Not because I didn't, Because I did, and admitting them out loud felt like peeling back skin. He hadn't joined us for dinner in weeks. When he did, he barely spoke unless sarcasm counted. He stopped asking for rides. He started locking his door. He flinched when Jenna raised her voice, even just at the dog. And once, about a month ago, I caught him crying in the garage. He said it was allergies. I believed him because I wanted to. I didn't want to see my kid was breaking. Not when it was easier to pretend he was just a teenager being dramatic. Not when acknowledging it meant confronting the fact that maybe the problem wasn't him. Maybe it was us. The worst part? Jenna kept blaming me. You always let him get away with too much. You never set boundaries. This is what happens when you parent with guilt. She kept asking, what did you say to him? What did you do? Like I handed him the map and packed his bag. I told her, he's been gone a night. Don't make this a crime scene yet. But inside I was already tracing outlines in chalk. Because I knew Charlie. I knew his kind of silence. It wasn't angry silence. It was final. Like he'd been preparing for this. Like he'd been watching us from a distance for a while, and we didn't notice how far he drifted. The cops came later that evening. We filed a report. Gave them a picture, his last school photo, where he looks like he's halfway between a grimace and a cry. Jenna tried to remember what he was wearing. I said black hoodie, probably. She said maybe it was the gray one. Dana suggested we check his TikTok. Craig said he might be with someone. Maybe a girl. I wanted to laugh, but my mouth was too dry. That night I sat in his room, staring at the empty spot on his shelf where his favorite horror novel used to be. I opened his drawer and found a folded paper with a list of coordinates. Not actual GPS ones, just random sets of numbers next to names. Uncle Game Night, 2 out of 10. Dad After Trophy, 1 out of 10. Jenna's new blender, 0 out of 10. It went on like that. Some of them were dates. Some were just moments. I realized, slowly, that it was a rating system. A private Yelp for his life. I was barely breaking twos. And one entry, circled in red. Family Game Night. Final score. 0 out of 10. Ending move achieved. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, phone in hand, watching for any notification, any sign, any text from a number I didn't recognize. He was out there somewhere. I just didn't know if he was running from something or to something worse. The next morning, I woke up in his bed. I don't remember falling asleep, just that at some point I must have because I opened my eyes and the sun was bleeding through the blinds like it had no idea someone was missing. Jenna was downstairs talking to someone, maybe her mom, maybe the police. Her voice sounded calm in that terrifying way people get when they've decided emotion is inefficient. I stayed upstairs. Something about stepping outside his room felt like I was admitting he wasn't coming back. That's when I found the first breadcrumb. Under his pillow, not hidden, not stuffed, just resting there like it was waiting for me, was a crumpled printout of an old Reddit thread. No title, just the header bar and a single comment circled in blue ink. It said, "If they only see the version of you that makes them comfortable, they never knew you to begin with." I stared at it so long the words started to lose shape. It felt like he left it for me. Not Jenna. Not the cops. Me. A message or maybe a warning. Like, hey dad, you're not the hero in this one. It hit me like a steel-toed boot to the gut. My kid didn't just run away. He disconnected. This was methodical. Intentional. And I started to realize he didn't vanish because of some impulsive emotional outburst. He left because he had finally accepted the truth. We weren't safe people to him. We were the danger disguised as stability. I didn't tell Jenna about the printout. Instead, I opened Charlie's laptop. It was password protected, but he used the same few variations of our dog's name for everything. Third guess worked. Inside, everything was clean. Not cleared. Just sterile. Like he'd purged himself out of his own existence. No downloads, no notes, no unsent drafts. Except one folder. Titled, Exit Strategies. My hands were shaking like I was defusing a bomb. Inside were screenshots. Articles about legal emancipation. Greyhound bus schedules. Budget breakdowns. Even a Google Doc titled, Places Where No One Cares Where You Came From. The doc had notes about cities, shelters, hostels, ratings, pros and cons. It read like travel plans for a ghost. There was even a section for jobs you can get without ID if you look old enough. And a line at the bottom. Burn the bridge, but don't look back to watch it fall. He was planning this. Not for days. For months. I showed it to Jenna. She cried, finally. Not loud. Not messy. Just those slow, stunned tears that slide down your cheeks like gravity is dragging shame out of your face. She asked, why didn't he say anything? And all I could think was, he did. He's been screaming for years. We just weren't listening because it didn't sound like what we wanted to hear. Craig and Dana came over again. Craig tried to talk strategy like we were coordinating a military extraction. Dana brought a basket of muffins, because what else do you do when someone's kid disappears? You feed their grief like it's going to bake itself away. But what none of them saw, what I didn't even fully grasp until that night, was this wasn't just about Charlie leaving. It was about him opting out. He didn't leave in a fit of rage. He didn't scream, slam doors, or hurl accusations. He left with a calm so complete it made the rest of us look like circus clowns juggling our own delusions. And that terrified me more than anything else. That night, after everyone left and Jenna cried herself into silence, I sat in the garage again. My old truck's passenger seat still had Charlie's hoodie from last month. I picked it up and just held it. I whispered, "Where the hell did you go, kid?" And the scariest thought wasn't that I didn't know. It was that maybe he didn't want to be found. Day 4 of Charlie being gone, and the silence in our house had officially upgraded from awkward to apocalyptic. Jenna stopped crying and started organizing. That's her default setting when emotions get too loud. Label maker out, grief alphabetized. She printed flyers. She made a spreadsheet of friends and acquaintances to call. Craig offered to pull some strings, which I'm pretty sure just meant yelling at a mall cop he knew from college. I didn't want muffins. I didn't want spreadsheets. I wanted answers. So I went back to the only place that still felt like mine, the garage. The truck still smelled like old leather and denial. I sat in the passenger seat with Charlie's hoodie again. Same spot, same hopeless ritual. But this time, I felt something weird in the pocket. Not keys. Not earbuds. Something small, stiff. It was a movie ticket. One of those old-school paper stubs from the local indie theater across town. Saturday, 7:15 p.m., The Lighthouse. It was dated 2 weeks before game night. Now, here's the kicker. Charlie told us he was at a friend's that night. One of the very few times Jenna was convinced he was being normal. So either he lied to us, or someone lied to him. I stared at that ticket stub like it was a confession. Because if he was at a movie, alone, which I'd bet anything he was, then this whole thing wasn't just brewing. It was boiling. Quietly. Strategically. While we were upstairs binge-watching garbage reality TV and debating backsplash tile samples, my son was sitting in a dark theater with a bunch of strangers, watching a film about isolation and madness and writing notes about how to disappear. I Googled the showtime. That theater had security cameras. I knew it was a long shot, but I drove down there anyway, hoodie and ticket in hand like some emotionally broken PI. The manager was a guy named Tim, probably 23, had that "I vape because it gives me purpose" kind of vibe. I told him my son had gone missing. Didn't even need to fake the tears. My eyes have been permanently red since Thursday. He looked spooked enough to take me seriously. Tim checked the footage. And there he was. Charlie. Alone. Hoodie up. Face partially turned. But I'd know that kid's posture anywhere. Sitting dead center, middle row. Watching the movie in total stillness, like he was absorbing it straight through his skin. He didn't fidget. Didn't check his phone. Just stared. Then, halfway through the film, he pulled out a notebook. Wrote something down. Closed it. Left before the credits rolled. Can I see the notebook? I asked Tim, like the guy magically had a Zoom feature on live. He shook his head, apologized, and offered me a free popcorn voucher. Like that was going to fill the hole in my chest. But what hit me later, driving home in that stupid silence, was this. Charlie wasn't just planning to leave. He was preparing to live without us. That thought sat with me all night. Not the disappearance, not the running away, but the possibility that he was out there, surviving, choosing his own damn story. And maybe he didn't want us in the next chapter. At 2:13 a.m., I got an email. From a burner address. No name. No subject. Just 5 words. Stop looking. I'm not lost. I stared at it so long I thought it might vanish. It didn't. Jenna hasn't seen it yet. I haven't told her. I don't know if I will. Because now the question isn't, where's Charlie? It's, what did we do to make our son believe that being gone was better than being home? And worse, what if he's right? The burner email sat in my inbox like a loaded gun. I read it 20, 30 times. Stop looking. I'm not lost. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What do you say to your own kid when he tells you he's better off without you? Cool. Thanks for the emotional gut punch. Love ya, bud. Jenna still didn't know. I couldn't bring myself to show her, not because I was trying to protect her, but because I was selfishly hoarding it. That message proved Charlie was alive. That he wasn't lying in a ditch or hiding in some needle-strewn alley. That he had a plan. It also proved he didn't want us in it. The news hadn't spread far. Jenna told her yoga group some edited version. He's going through something and just needs space. Craig told a cop friend, which led to a completely unnecessary wellness check at a Denny's in the next town over because a kid in a hoodie asked for water and sat too quietly. Meanwhile, I was slipping. I started missing work. I'd stare at Charlie's empty chair at the dinner table like it might spontaneously fill in. I replayed that night over and over, game night, the trophy, the silence, the look on his face when he said it. Like he was cutting the final string and daring us to notice. Then came the letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter, in the mail, addressed to me. No return address. No stamp. Just hand-delivered, probably dropped off in the middle of the night. Inside, a single Polaroid. Charlie, standing in front of a mural I recognized from a skate park downtown. One of those loud, colorful spray-painted things that looked like a unicorn OD'd on Mountain Dew. He was smiling. Not a full grin, but enough to know he meant it. He looked okay. Not broken. Not scared. Just free. On the back of the photo, in tiny handwriting. Told you. I'm not your prisoner. I showed it to Jenna. She stared at it like it was a hologram. Asked me where it was taken. When? I told her the truth. Downtown. He must be nearby. She didn't believe me. Said it looked fake. Said maybe someone was messing with us. I said, who the hell would do that? She said maybe this was my fault for not calling the police earlier, for not noticing the warning signs. Like I hadn't been carrying the signs around like bricks in my chest every damn day. We fought. Loudly. The kind of fight where every sentence ends with something like, just like always. I think that's when I realized we weren't actually fighting about Charlie. We were fighting about the fantasy that he was supposed to fix something in us. That having a kid would glue us together. Turns out it just gave us more surface area to crack. But here's where it gets worse. The same night I got the photo, Craig showed up again. Said he wanted to talk. Except he wasn't alone. He brought some guy with a shaved head, clipboard, and one of those tactical vests people wear when they really want you to know they peaked in high school ROTC. Said he knew someone who could help us track him down digitally. Offered to monitor online chatter. I asked, what does that even mean? Craig just said, it means I care. No, Craig. What it means is you've never met a situation you couldn't throw testosterone and paranoia at. I told them both to get the hell out of my garage. That's when Craig said something that really stuck. He doesn't want to be found, Mike. And deep down, I think you don't want to find him either. That one hit like a punch straight to my ribs. Because maybe he wasn't wrong. Because if we find Charlie, and he looks me in the eye and says, I meant it, in person, not in a note, not through a photo, but face to face, then it's real. Then the last 17 years of parenting and sacrifice and trying to be something resembling dad gets filed under irrelevant. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive that. It started with a voicemail, one I almost didn't listen to. I was halfway through ignoring a dozen unknown calls, half expecting telemarketers, half hoping it was him, when one number called back twice in 2 minutes. That's the desperation sweet spot, so I answered. Nothing. Just static. Then the third time, they left a message. I listened to it in the garage. Where else? Hey, it's me. Don't freak out. I'm okay. Charlie's voice. I froze like my body forgot how to process sound. I'm not calling to come back. I just figured you deserve to hear my voice, since you probably think I'm dead or chained to a radiator somewhere. He laughed. Actually laughed. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It sounded like freedom. Like someone who'd finally stepped outside the soundproof box we'd been keeping him in his whole life. I'm staying somewhere safe. With people who listen. With people who don't ask me to shrink to fit. That line. It hit me like the first time I saw his ultrasound. That same jolt of I don't know how to be ready for this. I know you're probably telling people I'm going through a phase. Or rebelling. Or having some breakdown. But I'm not. This isn't a rebellion. This is me, finally not performing. I'm not your redemption arc, Dad. I'm not your do-over. I'm just Charlie. There was a pause. Long enough that I thought the message ended. Then, oh, and by the way, I did regret being related to all of you. Still kind of do. But I don't hate you. I just don't want to live inside your version of love anymore. It always felt like a spotlight that burned. Click. No, goodbye. No, I love you. Just truth, raw and ugly and brilliant. I played it again. 5 times. Memorized the way he said, I'm just Charlie. Like he was reintroducing himself to the universe and daring it not to flinch. I didn't show it to Jenna. She wouldn't have heard what I did. She'd have latched onto the parts she could fix, analyzed his tone, picked apart the word still, tried to spin it into a maybe. But I knew better. I finally got a glimpse of my son, not the version we've propped up like a broken family photo, but the real one. And it shook me in ways I didn't expect. Because this kid, this 17-year-old we failed in a million small ways, he found the words I've spent my entire life choking on. He left. He meant it. And now he's speaking with a clarity that makes the rest of us sound like we've got marbles in our throats. That night, Jenna packed a bag. No big fight. No dramatic exit. Just a stiff-lipped, "I need some time at my sister's." I said okay. Watched her leave without asking when she'd be back. And then I sat alone in our house, my house now, I guess, and realized Charlie wasn't the only one who disappeared. The only difference? He left with purpose. We stayed and called it love. I got the call on a Tuesday. Middle of the afternoon, gray sky, windshield wipers squeaking like an old man's knees. I was parked in front of an old dive bar I hadn't walked into in 20 years. Wasn't there to drink. I just didn't want to be home. The silence in that house had started to echo. It was a block number. A woman's voice. "Is this Charlie's father?" My spine turned ice. "Yes." "Who is this?" "I'm with County Emergency Services. I need you to come down to St. Luke's Memorial." Now, I don't remember driving there. Honestly, one second I was parked, next I was standing in the ER, drenched in rain, staring at the kind of beige wall color that's been traumatized by years of bad news. I didn't sit. Couldn't. Every nurse who walked past me looked like they might be the one to break me in half. Then a man in blue scrubs came out and said my name. Just my first name. And that was somehow worse than the rest. Like we were suddenly on a first-name basis with heartbreak. "Your son was found unconscious in a downtown alley near Millstone Park. Hypothermia. Dehydration. He had a head injury, likely from a fall. There was no ID, but someone called it in. Said they recognized him from the flyers." The words came like slaps. I just stood there nodding like my neck was the only thing still working. "He's in critical condition. We've stabilized him, but it's not looking good." They let me see him. And nothing can prepare you for the moment you see your child hooked up to machines, lips cracked, face pale, breathing like he's fighting just to stay tethered to the world. That wasn't my son in that bed. That was a story unraveling too fast to stop. I sat beside him for hours. Held his hand even though it was ice. I whispered, "Hey, buddy. I'm here." Over and over. Like repetition could rewind time. Jenna came later, mascara already ruined, her face a storm of guilt and grief and disbelief. She collapsed next to me and said she didn't care about the details, just that he had to wake up. Had to. Because otherwise all the yelling, all the silence, all the useless noise we called parenting, it would end here. On a hospital gurney. The doctor came in again. More clinical words. Cerebral swelling. ICU. Maybe a coma. We nodded like puppets. Our hands clenched each other's without realizing it. Because no matter how broken we'd become, this was our son. And right now, he was slipping through fingers we didn't know how to close tight enough. That night I sat in the hospital chapel. Not to pray. I don't do that. But because it was the only place quiet enough to let the guilt scream. And for the first time since game night, I cried like a man who'd been holding a bomb in his chest for 17 years and finally let it detonate. Because Charlie ran to escape us. And now, he might never open his eyes again. Charlie opened his eyes 3 days later. Not with a dramatic gasp or teary reunion. Just slow. Quiet. Like someone waking up in a life they weren't sure they wanted to return to. I was there. Jenna was asleep in the corner, slumped in the world's least forgiving hospital chair. I was reading an old sci-fi novel he loved when he was 12. I didn't expect it. One second I'm reading about alien invasions, the next I hear a whisper so faint I thought I imagined it. "Dad?" My book hit the floor. I looked up, and there he was, eyes cracked open, bloodshot, confused. "Charlie," I breathed. "Jesus, Charlie. You're back." He blinked slowly. Was I gone? That question wrecked me. Not because it was literal, but because it wasn't. Because it was asking something so much bigger than waking up in a hospital. He didn't remember everything. His voice was gravel, his body weak, his thoughts foggy. But he remembered the alley. Said he was sleeping there for a few nights after someone he trusted kicked him out when he couldn't pay. Said he slipped on a wet stair behind a dumpster, hit his head. Said the sky looked purple before everything went black. The police came later. Asked questions. Took notes. Jenna answered most of them. I just sat there holding his hand like if I let go, the universe might try to take him again. They moved into recovery 2 days later. Smaller room. Fewer machines. More questions. One night, just the two of us, he finally asked, "Why didn't you stop me?" I didn't pretend not to understand. I didn't know how I said. "You were already leaving long before your feet ever walked out the door." He looked at me for a long time. Then said, "You always taught me how to stay quiet." I just finally listened. That one hurt more than any trophy, any insult, any silence. But he wasn't wrong. We built our family on survival mode. On get through the week. On keep things nice. We taught him to endure, not express. To be present but invisible. To smile for the sake of peace. And the whole time, he was drowning in a house full of people who thought love meant putting up with each other quietly. A week later, he was discharged. We didn't go home. He didn't want to. So we rented a small cabin 2 hours out. Middle of nowhere. Just trees, wind, and time. Jenna came for a few days, then left to give us space. Which was her way of saying, I don't know how to be this version of a mother anymore. Charlie and I sat on the porch most nights. Said almost nothing. Until one night he asked, if I hadn't gotten hurt, would you still be looking? I wanted to lie. To say of course. But he'd see through it. So I told him the truth. I was starting to wonder if maybe you were right to leave. That maybe love isn't about dragging someone back. It's about not being the reason they ran. He didn't say anything. Just stared out at the trees like they knew more than we did. He still hasn't come home. He's living with a family friend in a small city upstate. Finishing high school remotely. Works part-time at a bookstore. Sends me the occasional photo of weird customer notes or books he thinks I'd hate. Every few weeks, we talk. No pressure. Just real. Sometimes I hear him laugh. That's enough for now. Family game night doesn't happen anymore. The trophy is gone. I buried it. Literally. Dug a hole behind the cabin, dropped it in, and left it there to rot like the version of me that thought shame was just another love language. So, Ida? I hosted the game. I smiled through the joke. I let the silence eat my son alive because I thought it was kinder than conflict. So yeah, maybe I am the asshole. But I'm trying not to be anymore.